إن الحمد لله تعالى نحمده ونستعين به ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله تعالى من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا من يهده الله تعالى فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ونبيه ورسوله يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. All praise and glory be to Allah. We thank Him and we seek His help and His guidance and His pleasure and His forgiveness. And we turn to Allah seeking His protection from the evil whispers within us and the evil consequences of our misdeeds, of our evil actions. For whomever Allah guides, none can lead astray. And whomever Allah leaves without guidance, none can guide them. And we testify that no one is worthy of our worship but Allah, alone without any partners, the true Supreme King. And that the Prophet Mohammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam was in truth, indeed, His Prophet and His servant and His messenger. O people of Iman, O you who have believed, have the taqwa of Allah. Keep conscious of Allah, keep dutiful to Him in the manner to the extent that He deserves, subhanahu wa ta'ala, with every ounce you can muster of your energy and your strength and your obedience and your love. And do not die, do not leave this world except in a state of complete and total surrender to Allah, a state of Islam. To begin, after welcoming once again our brothers and sisters to the house of Allah Azza wa Jal, and thanking Him for the ni'mah of Islam, and the ni'mah of Iman, and the ni'mah of brotherhood, and the ni'mah of Jumu'ah, and the ni'mah of His masjid, the ni'mah of being in His house, being permitted to visit His house for another day, and for another week, we conclude, insha'Allah, this Friday, this Jumu'ah, with the fifth statement of Jibreel alayhi salam, the advice of Jibreel alayhi salam that I pray we will all memorize by now. And memorizing it is just the beginning, carving it in our conscience, inshaAllah. That Jibreel alayhi salatu wassalam, he said to our Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, Ya Muhammad, عِشْ مَا شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مَيِّتْ, live whatever length you like, but know that you will die. Be certain of that. وَأَحْبِبْ مَنْ شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مُفَارِقُ, and love whomever you like, but know that you will be separated from them. وَأَعْمَلْ مَا شِئْتَ فَإِنَّكَ مَجْزِيٌّ بِهِ, and do whatever you like, know that you will be repaid with it, and repaid for it. وَأَعْلَمْ أَنَّ شَرَفَ الْمُؤْمِنِ قِيَامُهُ بِاللَّيْلِ, and know that the honor of the believer is in his standing at night, in his private conversations, in his very special connection with Allah, in the privacy and the sincerity of the night. And this is the fifth and final statement. He said, alayhi salam, وَعِزُّهُ اسْتِغْنَاؤُهُ عَنِ النَّاسِ, أو وَعِزَّهُ اسْتِغْنَاؤُهُ عَنِ النَّاسِ, that his izzah, the izzah of the believer, is his istighna, is his lack of needing, is his independence of the people. And the izzah of the mu'min, the empowerment, the dignity, the self-respect, the perceived respect of the believer lies in him not needing the people, not being dependent on others. The word izzah, by the way, some people conflate it with sharaf, but the Prophet ﷺ made a difference. That the sharaf of the believer is his standing at night, his honor. Whereas his izzah, and we're going to translate izzah as empowerment, and there's a reason for this, is in his independence of the people. Sharaf refers to a location, either on earth, right? Ashrafa ala al-balda means he came out and he was able to identify it, see the location in Arabic. And so sharaf means your location in the ladder, your status. Whereas izzah comes from al-nudra. Azza shay ay qalla wujuduhu. When something has izzah originally in Arabic, it means it's hard to find, it's rare. And so people's dignity, or when people are exceptionally dignified, exceptionally strong. They use the word izzah or aziz with them because it's very rare that you'll get over on them. Meaning they're so strong, they're so impressive, they're so big, whatever it is, you cannot dominate them. You cannot find leverage on them. And that's why we translate as empowerment. You having an edge. Izzah is having an edge of influence, an edge of strength, an edge of respect. Your influence, your distinction in terms of the balances of power, if you will, on earth, that izzah comes in, at the core of it is being liberated from people, not needing of people, not dependent on anyone or any of the people. And we said that Jibreel alayhi salam kept giving the Prophet ﷺ advice where every sentence was built on the sentence before it. So there's a beauty and a logic and a necessity to understand the sequence. He said to him first in the sequence, in the order, your honor is in engaging with Allah at night. And your power is in you being able to let go of the people, not depend on the people. The connection here is obvious because whoever connects with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala feels that closeness to Allah, sharaf makan, that space between him and Allah gets smaller. The more he transcends, the more he climbs away from being connected. When they fall, he falls. When they become poor, he becomes poor. When they become weak, he becomes weak. He becomes independent of the people. And so the more a person connects with Allah, the more they can do without the people. There's an obvious connection there that we must understand. And that's why Imam Ahmad rahimahullah, of the beautiful du'as that he used to make, supplications he used to make, that were recorded about him in his biography, he used to say, Allahumma كما صنت وجهي عن السجود لغيرك فصنه عن المسألة لغيرك. He says, oh Allah, the same way you shielded, you protected my face from being humiliated, making sujood, being lowered to anybody but you. You honored me by only making sujood to Allah, by making me Muslim. He said, and also protect my face now from having to stand in front of people and ask of them. Be dependent on others. Because asking others is a source of humiliation. That's why the Prophet ﷺ with the early Sahaba, with Ibn Abbas and others, he raised them on this concept of being independent. He said to Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, وَإِذَا سَأَلْتَ فَاسْأَلِ اللَّهِ وَإِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ. When you ask of Allah. And when you depend on Allah. Can you imagine how Allah wants you to be? He wants to empower you by telling you, do not ask anybody but me. Allah wants that from you. I don't want you to humiliate yourself by asking others. Learn how to connect with me. Learn how to knock on the doors of the heavens, and that will suffice you all of your needs. That is where I want you. Because I know that if you ask the people, they'll get upset at you. And they'll humiliate you. And they'll disappoint you. And so if you don't ask me, look at the difference. When you ask the people, they get upset at you. And when you don't ask Allah Azza wa Jal, He gets upset at you. Imagine someone who tell you, every time you need a penny, every time you need a smile, every time, come to me. I'll give you your penny. I'll teach you how to smile again. I'll disperse the sadness. I'll admit the happiness. I'll give you everything. Just keep coming to me. Don't go to anywhere else that's going to disappoint you. Auf ibn Malik radiallahu anh, he says that the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, after we already gave him bay'ah, pledged allegiance to him in the terms of Islam, he says, he came to us again and said, give me bay'ah. One and two, and we said, we did already. He said it again. Will you give me bay'ah? He said, we already did. He said, will you give me bay'ah? He wants them to say yes, so he'll ask them for more conditions. These conditions are not going to be for his sake, alayhi salatu wasalam, nor a benefit that Allah, no strings attached. Allah wants to give you more, you just promise to commit to the exchange, to the interaction. So they said, what? What is the bay'ah, ya Rasulullah? Tell us, yes, we will give you bay'ah. They realized there was something more that he wanted to say, so they said, yes, we will give you bay'ah. He said, أَن تَعْبُدُوا اللَّهَ وَلَا تُشْرِكُوا بِهِ شَيْئًا. To worship Allah and don't ask anyone but Him. not associate anyone but him. And then he said later on, وَأَلَّا تَسْأَلُوا النَّاسَ شَيْئًا, and that you don't ask anybody for anything. Auf ibn Malik says we were 7 or 8 or 9 people in that gathering. فَلَقَدْ رَأَيْتُ النَّفَرَ مِنْ أُولَٰئِكَ يَسْقُطُ الصَّوْتُ مِنْ أَحَدِهِمْ فَلَا يَسْأَلُ أَحَدًا أَنْ يُنَاوِلَهُ إِيَّاهُ. He said after that point, one of these people that were in that gathering, I remember seeing them, they would drop the whip off of their horse. You drop your pen from a table, you drop your keys from a they would drop the whip from him while he's riding, and he would not ask anyone to hand it to him. They wouldn't ask anyone to do that for them. Why? Because they pledged and promised to the Prophet ﷺ, they will not ask of the people. Does that mean you never ever ask for the people? No. But he was teaching them, ﷺ, and they understood this very well, that get into the habit of anything you can do for yourself, do it for yourself. Don't seek help from Allah, seek strength from Allah, and do it yourself. And if you absolutely cannot do it for yourself, then ask yourself a question. Can I do without it? Can I do without it? Like, will I survive if I don't ask them to give me seconds of that drink, or to pass me or do me that favor? Or can I do without it? If they can do without it, they ignore it. That's it. And if they cannot do without it, then they would seek out the person that is most likely not going to hold it against them, that they ask them. And so that this would limit the times they ask from people. It would radically reduce these times. And the importance of that is clear, because the more you ask of the people, it will either cost them their time, or their peace of mind, or their money. You will be asking them to give up something of their world, of their life, of their dunya for yours. That's what you're asking for. And that's why the Prophet ﷺ in some narration said, وَازْهَدْ فِي مَا فِي أَيْدِي النَّاسِ يُحِبَّكَ النَّاسِ. Let go of what's in the people's hands, then they will love you. Otherwise, if you ask of the people, one of two things is going to happen. That Allah Azza wa Jal does not love for you. He wishes for you to be above. Either number one, they'll give you what you ask for, but they'll look at you negatively in the process. The best example of this, your own mother. If you ask your mother for a certain dish that you like, she'll be happy. Most likely she'll be happy. He wants to eat this dish that he hasn't had in a long time. But if you tell her, and I want you to do this on the side, and here's some, and here's $100 so you can go buy the ingredients, and I want this kind of drink with it, and don't make it too hot because last time it was a little bit extra dry, and you start listing your requests, your own mother will start getting frustrated with you, won't she? So this is going to apply to the person that is your mother, that no one can offer you what they offer you, willingly, graciously, of their lives for your life, of their happiness and comfort for your happiness and comfort. Then what about anyone else whatsoever? So that's the first scenario. They'll actually give you, but it won't be for free. You will lose a few ranks in their heart. You'll lose leverage, influence, respect in their heart because of how much you're dependent on them and asking of them. The second case scenario is you will ask them and they'll disappoint you. Or you'll depend on them. It's not always a verbal asking. Istighna means for you to not look for them to offer you what you need, to validate your needs, to supply your needs. And we give a few examples of this that are very important. The first of them is when you depend on someone else for your religious commitment, for your iman. Most people on the planet are like this, by the way. You know, even like social scientists, when they explain why do people believe in something, whether it's a religion or a philosophy or something, they say this faith, this belief that they have in anything, happens for one of three reasons. There's what they call faith by association. It's very important for you to understand this. Faith by association. Their faith is a result of and dependent on who they associate with. So most people have the religion of their parents because they associated with their parents. Okay, this is their environment. The second level of faith is when you become independent of your surroundings. This is by iqna', the faith by conviction, persuasion. You have this is where you want to be. But even then, there's still going to be a struggle in your faith, because if you're convinced with something, but it's just too hard, you're going to unconvince yourself. You're still a little bit dependent on the people around you. And so they said the third level, the strongest form of faith in anything, just so you understand your religion, the religion of your children, not being dependent on anything, on other people, is when you climb past that, you become independent of even your mind. And you become not fully independent. You become a person of faith by experience. I felt it. I've seen it myself. And if we have this, our children may not have this. They are dependent on their surroundings. Or they're convinced on some level, but when push comes to shove, the conviction is going to fall because they didn't taste faith. Faith by your experiences. This is like when Musa alayhi salam, he's convinced. And all of the world says, no, we're stuck. Those that are convinced like you are stuck. They say, we're going to be caught. Inna la mudrakun. Musa alayhi salam at that point says, Inna ma'iya rabbi sayahdeen. My Lord is with me. I'm not dependent on you guys staying around and believing what I believe in. Whether you live or you die, you believe I'm not dependent on anyone. And so whoever's iman, faith, is dependent on another person's faith, whether it be your sheikh, your scholar, your parents, what if they fall off? What if they go through fitna? What if they die away? And so this is of the ways that your empowerment, your izzah as a Muslim comes from you not needing that. Another important way that you need to break away from the people for you to have this strength is to not depend on people's money. This is huge in Islam. The Prophet ﷺ, when two men came to him and asked him for sadaqah, asked him for zakah, he looked them up and down. Because the narrator says, فَرَآنَا جَدَّيْنِ. He saw that we were very fit guys, we were tough men. So they didn't look like the typical person who can't earn a living. And then he said to them, alayhi salatu wassalam, إِن شِئْتُمَا أَعْطَيْتُكُمَا. If you wish, you're saying you deserve, I'll take your word for it. And you are originally to take a person's word for it, even if you're not sure that they need it. So long as you're not sure they're lying, they're scamming, you can give them from your zakah. And if you find out later, you don't need to repay your zakah. You just take at face value. The default is that a Muslim is honest. He said, if you desire to take from zakah money, I'll give it to you. وَلَكِنْ, but no, وَلَا حَظَّ فِيهَا قَالَ إِنْ شِئْتُمَا أَعْطَيْتُكُمَا وَلَا حَظَّ فِيهَا لِغَنِيٍّ وَلَا لِقَوِيٍّ مُكْتَسِبٍ. But know that no one deserves this money if they are rich, if they have their own money, meaning غني means they're financially independent, or they have the strength to earn their own money. Islam does not want you dependent on anybody, financially either. This is also true for nations, for a dual. If the Muslim Ummah is not financially independent, right, they will continue to not have power, because they're dependent on someone else to feed them and give them drink and give them inventions and give them technology and give them patents. Islam uprooted that and said you need to become financially independent. That's part of your power. And the third and last one before I sit, to be dependent on people's pleasure of you. Right? Al-istighna'u an rida an-nas. To not feel the need that I have to be people need to be pleased with me. Because, first of all, that's impossible. The people will never always be pleased with you. Read the Quran, see the prophets of God. They didn't earn this. How will you earn this? There are some people that no matter what you do, they will only focus on the negative in you. They will only see that. That's actually because of the negativeness in them, so they project it on other people. You know, one brother, he said to me, and I would never use this example unless I was absolutely sure he was joking. He said to me, when I asked him to bear witness to a divorce agreement, he said, you know, ever since you've been in the community, good things have happened, but the divorce rate is up. He was joking because it was one divorce. And I laughed with him. But there are people actually like this. That way will say nothing good has happened except this one bad has happened. And there are some people, no matter how genuine you will be, they will always assume evil of you. Because that's the lens they look at the world. That's the lens they look at the world. And so Islam says they're not the ones that validate you. They're not the ones that dictate to you. This, by the way, gives you strength of what? Consistency. You're not waiting for their appreciation either. It also gives you independence. You know Ibn Badis, rahimahullah, a beautiful example of this, and there's so many among the Sahaba and the Tabi'een with the rulers. But Ibn Badis, rahimahullah, Abdul Hamid al-Jazairi, when the French envoy of Syria came to him and threatened him, and said to him, you're going to stop teaching these poisonous ideas to the young guys about Islamic reform and bringing Islam back. He says, you're either, or I'm going to shut down your masjid. So he said to him, you can't shut down my da'wah. He said, of course I can. He said, no, you can't. If you shut down my masjid, I'll still share these ideas in every wedding I'm invited to, and every aqiqah I'm invited to. And I'll share it with whoever's sitting next to me on the train, and whoever rides with me on the bus, and whoever invites me to pray janazah on their relatives. And if you stick me in prison, I'm going to share it with the inmates. And if you kill me, you're going to provoke the masses even more against you. He couldn't do much. He was not dependent on his pleasure. By the way, the masses also, he did not gain izzah, empowerment with the masses until istaghna anhum. He wasn't trying to please them. Because trying to please the rulers and trying to please the crowds is the same exact thing. It's just as disgraceful. But when you can have istighna, I'm not needing of someone to be pleased with me, that is where izzah comes from. That is where empowerment comes from. That's where no flip-flopping happens anymore. That's where you have the strength to be a abd of Allah, where you don't need people, and people start needing you. You become of leverage in this world. And thus the believer should be. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله العظيم لي ولكم. Alhamdulillah wahdahu wassalatu wassalamu ala man la nabiyya ba'da. Allah Azza wa Jal praised the earliest believers by their protectiveness, how secretive they were when they had needs about their needs. يَحْسَبُهُمُ الْجَاهِلُ أَغْنِيَاءَ مِنَ التَّعَفُّفِ. The one who doesn't know any better considers them needless. I don't need anything from anyone. Because of how dignified they were. That was the protectiveness. They were dignified. And so Allah praised the believers like this, and we need to develop in ourselves and in our children that type of istighna, that type of independence. You can do this with your children by not asking them to get you a cup of water, by not asking anyone to do anything for you at home. As the Prophet ﷺ, whenever he could, he would fix his shoes by himself and stitch his clothes by himself. And he was like that, alayhi salatu wassalam. You can say, but I want to teach my children to serve their parents. Okay, tell them to serve the other parent, not this parent. That's the easy way to do it. And here's another tip to develop this inside of us. We said do things yourself. If you cannot, then do I really need it? If I really need it, fine. Then I'll ask someone who will likely not look at me in a negative light because of it. Another thing you can do is to train yourself to be ready for disappointment. To be ready for disappointment. Tell yourself, the next time someone fails me, they break a promise to me, they betray my expectations, don't be disappointed at people as much anymore. Say, look, it's not that you failed me, I expected too much of you. I expected too much of you. And one of the easy ways to get yourself to do this is to remind yourself that you do the same exact thing so many times with other people. And if you don't have selective memory, you'll realize this. You know, one brother really disappointed me for a while until I realized I was being double standards here. I do the same exact thing. Since I've moved into this community, he's called me 3 times. And I've shared this story with some before. He has called me 3 times. At each of his divorces. I never heard from him again. I hardly ever saw him again. And so every time he would call me, I'd be extremely upset. I'd say, this brother, he called me at his second divorce or his third. Say, Akhi, that means in order to divorce her a second time, that means you got back together. So how come you're only sharing the bad news with me? I'm sitting here thinking you're going through such a struggle and you guys have resolved and moved on to, you got to another conflict and divorced. You only rush to me during the problems. And so I almost wanted to block his number. I almost wanted to remove him from my life. Until I said, I pray Allah forgives me for keeping him in my life, because I do the same thing with Allah. Don't we all run to Allah, get a little closer only when we have problems? And we move away when we don't have problems? So why do we have expectations of people that we don't even hold ourselves to? And so this will teach you to settle, even with your family, by the way. You being so dependent on an expectation about your family is so weakening of you and of your family. My kid has to be a doctor. My kid has to be an engineer. My wife cannot be this way. My husband, just settle a little bit. And you know how you do that? And I'm done with this hadith now, is to rewind to the beginning of the hadith. It began by the discussion on death. Al-Hasan al-Basri rahimahullah was asked, how do I get myself to be good with my family? حسن العشرة. قال بعلمك أن الثوى فيهم قليل. By knowing that you remaining among them is going to be for a very small period of time. That gets you to just settle. Because your problem is that you're dependent on seeing your child fit your mold, to be an extension of your life, and your wife as well, and your husband. By realizing you're not going to be here very long, you become content, independent of them, and so your prosperity is not dependent on your expectations of your family anymore. You're not in need of any of this. Allah wants you like that. Because at the end of the day, they will not be able to offer you much when the disconnect happens. So empower yourself now. Stop trying to impress. Stop trying to be demanding. Know that they cannot offer you much when you get into your grave. So empower yourself by connecting with Allah and living with the people graciously. اللهم اغفر لنا وارحمنا واغننا بفضلك عمن سواك. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك واغننا بفضلك عمن سواك. اللهم اكفنا بحلالك عن حرامك واغننا بفضلك عمن سواك. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. اللهم اغفر للمسلمين والمسلمات والمؤمنين والمؤمنات وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على سيدنا وإمامنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين.